Wow. Dr. Weber, I'm gonna make sure I take you back with me. I can't wait to tell my family that I'm a cypress. Growing up along the bayou of the Mississippi River, I always thought of myself as an oak tree, perhaps a weeping willow tree. I've been through so many storms that I know that I can bend when the wind blows, but never break. I know I can stand my ground sometime when people come after me, because like that sturdy oak tree, I got deep roots. But being here in California, ladies and gentlemen, is like being in a home that didn't give me birth, but always give me life. For every time I visit this wonderful state, I am reminded of your story. I am reminded of those who came here seeking a new way, a frontier. Some came for gold, some came simply because they did not want to be where they were. You came here to make a difference, and every time you make something happen, America listens to you. So it was back in 1981, after I got my first assignment coming out of college, Mrs. King offered me a job. It was one of those jobs that had a great description but no pay, but I still accepted it. I accepted it because it was offered by Coretta Scott King. And Mrs. King asked me, like she had asked so many other young people of that moment, if we would take time out of our lives to help with the campaign to make her husband's birthday a national holiday. I took on that responsibility because I felt as a child of the segregated South, it was my duty and my obligation to not just give back, but to pay it forward. My payday came in many ways. It came by knowing those who had struggled for civil rights, those who had sacrificed for civil rights and justice. My payday came in service to a greater cause. And because of her determination to honor not just her husband, but to honor his legacy, his service, we celebrate every third Monday in January, a special day, unlike any other holiday. We celebrate the life and legacy of a great American hero, a prophet, someone who bore witness to the pain and injustice and suffering of others, someone who was willing to give his life, yes, his life, so that we may live better. I don't know about you, but when the choir was up singing "Oh Happy Day," when Jesus he washed my sins away. Oh happy day. He taught me how to watch, fight, and pray. Fight and pray. Oh happy day. He taught us to live by rejoicing every day. Oh, happy day. And so this morning, I'm going to rejoice with you. I am going to be ecstatic about sharing this holiday with you, this moment, this great moment. Oh, happy day. But I want to first start by just saying that my thoughts and prayers are with the people of Southern California as they dig out from the mud. Those of us who've lived through storms, whether they are tornadoes or hurricanes, or sometimes they're just named Trump. We know that to survive any storm, we have to pray. We have to be prepared. But when that storm blows over, we also have to stand up and go and make sure that everybody else came through it. And so we pray this morning that everybody come through it. We pray that those who are still somehow or another stuck in the muck can get out of it. And we pray that the first responders have the strength and determination to make one more visit, one more round, to go back one more time, because maybe there's just someone else sitting down on their front porch or perhaps on their back porch waiting for somebody to come by. I don't have to read about this. I know about this. I know what it's like to have family members still waiting to be rescued, waiting for somebody to come by and just get them. I'm reminded that my own sister in a assisted living facility waited almost 9 days before someone came to get her after Hurricane Katrina. 9 days, and it was someone from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries who found her and about 3 others alive. Everyone else had drowned. She held on because she watched and she prayed. And so we are going to pray for those down in Southern California. And we know today that we're going to hear some good news. More survivors, more people who will be lifted up. So there's a great pleasure, because coming here back in 1981 when I was just 21, you could do the math, I'm 58. Indeed, just a few weeks ago, Dr. Webb, I celebrated my second anniversary of turning 29. To all of the millennials, you got my attention this morning. Oh my God, I have never ever stopped when someone screamed like that. And first thing I wanted to know, Mr. Chair, I said, Lord, I don't know if I could do first aid. When that scream came through, I said, heart attack, stroke? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm best when I can revive somebody with a beer. I don't know anything about mouth to mouth. I can't do nothing else. If you have a heart attack, God knows I find a can of beer, I will revive you. Because often those things are caused by dehydration. And that can of beer will wake you up. So I just have to tell you, I feel like I'm home. Before I could even put my bacon in my mouth, I saw some friends here that just humble me because they've known me for 30, 35 years. And when people who've known you that long show up at this hour of the morning and they're dressed up, you know that you've done something right in your life. These are friends who have gone through storms with me. These are friends who have led us out of many storms, out of a lot of muck. So I want to thank Christine and Bob. I want to thank Cassandra and Alice, my former friend in the Hill, Javier Becerra. I told him, I said, you know, he had another appointment. I released him. I said, I don't want you to catch a cold sitting next to me and give me something. I told him I was going to change my last name from Brazil to Honduras to Salvador to Haiti to Mexico, because I'm going to stand up for immigrants' rights, and I'm going to stand up for those who are being persecuted. I labored last night with members of the California Legislative Black Caucus. I labored over, well, y'all laughing? Brother Farrell, he's a Louisiana boy, so he can understand the Louisiana girl talk. I labored with them last night over some delicious food and good California wine. And I just want to thank them for their leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the California Legislative Black Caucus a tremendous round of applause. Thank you. They are principled, They are courageous. When I was talking to them, Ms. Holly, the Budget Committee, the Appropriations Committee, the Science and Technology, all these great titles, accomplishments. And when we were just talking, and I said, anybody on agriculture? Yes, we got somebody on agriculture. Got it, y'all feed the world. I want some black folks in that room. Don't be sending me any strawberries and some almonds and all of the good things that you send us across the country. I wanted to make sure everybody was serving. So thank you. You're also amazing. And I just want you all to also pass on my regards to Governor Brown. You know, I might just stop by his house and make some gumbo. Dr. Weber, you know, you put that Trinity on. You put that on with some, you stir it up, put on some Luther. Or maybe for some of you, put on some Teddy Pendergrass, Lou Rawls. I mean, if you really want to stir it really good, just put some Johnny Mathis. I don't know how anybody makes love these days to some of the songs I hear on the radio. I mean, how do you get your rhythm? Look, I go to church. And I'm just saying it. I want to go to the governor's mansion and go wherever the governor might be and just stir up something because I want to make him well. I need him well. We need him well. We need him well because he will always stand up and do the right thing for equality, for human rights. He stood up for African-American equal rights and struggles when there was great political risk of doing so. And that's why I wish him a speedy recovery. He's a good governor. I wish we had more like him across the United States of America. And so I want to let him know that I came here to wish him well. But this morning we're going to celebrate Dr. King's birthday, his life and his legacy. Had he lived, he would have turned 89 on Monday. But his dream is timeless. His dream will never die because it's in our hearts, it's in our minds, and it's in our soul. And we are so fortunate to have Dr. King's example, his principles. He led his people and this nation through difficult times. It's priceless to have his legacy to guide us, to guide members of the California Legislative Black Caucus, to guide our clergy, to guide our businessmen and women, to guide our young people, yes, our millennials. Stay woke. Dr. King taught us that to be alive, we had to serve. To be alive, we had to give back. And yes, Dr. King in troubled times made us wake up to the reality that we too had a role to play. He inspired us with his many truths, his sermons, his eloquence, his grace, his ability to stir the conscience of the nation, to stir the soul of those who were voiceless. Today we face increasingly bold voices seeking to divert the public attention from some of our greatest challenges. We are faced with people who want us to go back to an era that none of us wish to ever experience again. I don't know about you, but I'm not going back. I'm going forward, and so should all of you. You know, the voices, I call them the discordant voices. They've been with us for many, many years. They never left. But they now have latched on to the despair of those who won't change. They have become a populist movement. And on the right, they have become a very dangerous movement because they seek to identify with the racists of the past. They seek to keep monuments to an era where there was no justice. And they seek to divide us and to polarize us, to marginalize us, and to say that we have no place at the table. They seek to overturn Dr. King's legacy. They seek to try to create false narratives. We cannot defeat them unless we get in the way, as Congressman John Lewis would say, and unless we're willing to stir the pots and to cause some trouble. You know, we don't have to mirror their tactics. We do not have to become what I call the alternative to their mean-spiritedness. We have to seek to go back to where Dr. King was leading us, where Dr. King left us, and where Dr. King's legacy now means more than ever before. We must be the generation that begin to heal these wounds so that they don't continue to reappear. We must be the generation to remove the old stereotypes that said that when you're black, you should go back. If you're brown, don't come around. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not even going back to the ages where women didn't have a seat at the table because our voices will matter more and more. We're not going back. We're going to be the generation that seek progress. On that night, some of you might remember, I was only 8 years old when that fateful day occurred. My grandmother called us in the order of our birth: Cheryl, Sheila, Donna, Teddy, Chet, Lisa, Demetri, Kevin, Ziola. Did I tell you we were Catholic? She called us into her room. And Grandma Francis was from the great state of Mississippi. Grandma wanted us to know that something had occurred that day while we were at school. It was a Thursday afternoon. She made us get on our knees, as we often did in her room. And she said we had to pray. We had to pray for Dr. King. Dr. King was shot, and we just had to pray. And so, knowing the little we knew about praying, we said, "Our Father." And when we finished, and we had to say it out loud, we knew the words. When we finished, she said, "Now pray for his family." We did Hail Mary. We knew the words. And we prayed for his family, Mrs. King and his 4 children. We also prayed for everyone else. Later that evening, when my mother and father came home, my parents worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. My mother was a maid, my father was a janitor, but they took good care of us 9 kids. That night, my parents told us the bad news. They told us that Dr. King was killed. They didn't want us to watch TV or listen to the radio. They wanted us to continue to pray. The difference between my grandmother and my parents was that when we prayed in their room, and my dad had all of the altars, he had a saint for every cause, I still listen to the saints. St. Anthony, I cannot find my watch. St. Jude, I don't know if I'm going to make it. St. Teresa, I need a little help this morning with this skin. And of course, there's St. Joseph, who will always stand near and close by. But that evening, as we prayed to the saints and the angels, my dad said that we also had to pray for whoever murdered Dr. King. Being the little girl that had the biggest mouth, I said, why? Why should we pray for someone who murdered Dr. King? Dr. King was a good man. And my daddy said, because that's what our Lord would want us to do, to pray for whoever murdered Dr. King. Of course, my mother told me, as usual, to shut up. I wish she had lived long enough to know that her daughter got a contract with NPR, CNN, and ABC, so Thank God I kept my mouth going. But after I finished praying, and after my sisters and brothers and I went to bed, I was awakened in the middle of the night, and I thought about what else I could do. And that was that moment that I realized I wanted to be a civil rights worker. The next night I went to a Baptist church. I committed one of those cardinal sins. I'm sorry, Baptists, but those of us who are Catholic, back then it was a no-no. My parents said that the services are too long and they start screaming. I now know why they scream. They feel the spirit. I scream too. My sister screamed she talked in tongues, and I asked if she had too many beers. But I went to that Baptist church, and that night I heard that song. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. That light came on, and that light is still shining. And so I want to remind you of where Dr. King was that night before he was taken from us. Dr. King has many sermons, so many that there are books that analyze his sermons, so many writings, so much to learn from a great prophet. He said that night, and I quote, "Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I am not concerned about that now. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. We as a people will get to the promised land." That wasn't the first time that Dr. King had spoke of his death, but he did not fear death. He didn't fear death because Dr. King was not afraid to live and to live in freedom. And before he took us to the mountaintop, before he got us there, before he was leading us to the promised land, he told us that we had to rise above hate, that we had to rise above despair. We had to rise above division and discordant noises. He told us to rise up ourselves and he gave us a view of something better, a land where we could be free, that we could be equal, a land where everybody had a role, every voice had a message, and every person had a meaning. He gave us a taste of what a better day would look like, a better tomorrow could be like. Dr. King wanted us to be believers in each other, to march for justice, for peace, for equality, for freedom for every individual. Had he lived, where would we be today? He would have brought us to the 21st century much quicker than we have arrived. He would have taught us to ignore those discordant voices and to go with our better angels, to live our best lives and to fight, to continue to march, to not let those who are sitting under our bridges, who are wandering around right outside our libraries, looking for help, many of them veterans who have served our country, they need our help. Dr. King would have said, give them some help. Get them from under the bridge. Bring them in. Give them food and give them shelter. Dr. King would say, we're not going to send back those young children. They're dreamers. They're our dreamers. They're our children. They must stay here. This is the only home they know. Dr. King would have dared to make a difference. He would have been involved in the Me Too movement before it was Me Too. He saw the future, and he took us to that mountain, and he said that we could get there together, we as a people. We have to go back to that mountain. We have to go back to that night. And yes, you have to go back. Why you? Because there's no one better. And why now? Because we've come too far to go back. We're not going back. We're not going back. We've come too far. And we're not going back to separate and unequal. We're not going back to sitting where those who gave us what I call the seats at the end of the room. We've come too far to ask permission. We've come too far. And we're not going to allow our children to suffer. We've come too far to wait any longer. We've come too far, made too much progress. And yes, for those of you who are engaged in the political world, like I have been my entire life, we cannot allow one American to lose their health care. Not one. That's sinful. To have someone tonight or tomorrow worry if they're going to be able to get a flu shot, to be able to get relief, if they're able to get checked, if they're able to afford their medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of work to do. King's birthday is not a day off. It's a day on, a day of service, a day to remember this man and his dream. A day to rise up and to renew our bond with those who have struggled before, those whose steely shoulders we stand upon and sit on. It's a day that we light this torch and we give it to the next generation. I tell my young millennials, I want them to come into the room. I don't want you to scream. I don't want you to feel that your lives don't matter. Your lives matter to all of us. Your hopes and your dreams, they matter to us. I want you to know, young millennials, that you have a seat at the table. You have a role to play. Dr. King would have welcomed you into the movement. Dr. King would have given you the best seats. He would have encouraged you to go ahead and lead. He was 26 when he received his calling. You forget that he died before he turned 40. He was 26 when he led the people in Montgomery, Alabama. By the time he was in the Birmingham jail, Dr. King had just gotten over his 30th birthday. He was never thought of as an old man. He was a young man on a mission to free his people and his country. And so he would have welcomed you to the table, welcomed you to the struggle, welcomed your voices and your sacrifice. Dr. King would never have abandoned the working people of our country. He would have continued to march with those sanitation workers. He would have continued to march for better wages, a living wage. Dr. King would not be upset if people called him controversial or a troublemaker. That's why whenever somebody called me a troublemaker, I smile. Lord have mercy. Can you imagine a daughter of a maid and a janitor go around life not causing trouble? My parents didn't work 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make ends meet for me to become comfortable and to allow you to be comfortable in my presence. I'm going to stir you up. If you don't like it, get used to it. People who are stuck in poverty, they are not stuck in poverty because they're not working hard. They're stuck in poverty because they can't make a way out of nowhere because people have made it harder for them to get out of poverty. They made it harder for them to afford an education, harder for them to get better jobs, harder for them to find a bus that will come into their neighborhood and take them to a better job. They are stuck in poverty because we have not helped them get out of poverty. And don't let anybody tell you that a poor person doesn't work hard, that a poor person is not willing to give back and pay it forward. I'm tired of those politicians who said that we got to somehow or another put another test on a poor person. We should test the politicians who want them tested. King taught us not to fear death, but to live our best lives. He taught us not to settle for a half cup, but to go all the way and get a full cup and to share it with others. He stirred the soul of this nation, and he never abandoned his calling. He taught us that we are born to serve and to lead with our convictions. And as I said, if it makes some people uncomfortable, then pray for them. Say, I hope tomorrow you feel better about what I said, but all I know is diversity is an asset. There's nothing wrong with bringing people of color in the room. There's nothing wrong with having women. We're not asking anybody to leave the room. Just scoot over. Service is not just an obligation, it's an opportunity to make a difference, to give back, and to pay it forward. I'm going to devote the rest of my life to what I've devoted all my life to, is service. I find great joy in service. In the Bible, I have my AME Zion brother. Where's my AME Zion brother here? There you go, honey. Yeah. Y'all know, I tell you, I'm a little Catholic, so I got all my little, saints and everybody here. I wear two layers of beads and stuff, and I got on so much spiritual guard, baby, because I'm covered with the blood. I drink. I don't smoke and fornicate like I used to. I'm a sinner. When I go to Mass, either on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday, depending on the day, sometime I go on Saturday because the football season, I don't shortchange God. I say, God, I'll be there on Saturday afternoon because, I got to cook my red beans for the game. And, the Lord is always with you. If you say, if two or more are gathered, we're just watching the saints. I go to confession. I ain't afraid. Bless me, Father, I've sinned. And I always look back and say, and what about you? The Bible says, he or she without sin cast the first stone. And I ain't about that. I don't sit in judgment of nobody. I pray. I told someone I pray for Donald Trump because I love my country. And he is the president of the United States. We should all pray for him. For the Bible tells us so. And I pray for him. I pray for him, his family. I pray for my country. And I'm proud of that. I pray for all of our leaders. And I pray every day that God bring us some change. Pastor, in Luke 22:27, it said, I am among you as one who serves. I am among you as one who serves. Dr. King understood that he was a servant of God, and that we are all servants of God, and that we are here to serve not just ourselves, but to serve others as well. God has empowered us this day. He's empowered us to see so much in our lifetime, so much that Dr. King helped to create by opening doors and by removing barriers and obstacles. Dr. King believed that everyone can be great because anybody can serve. And you only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love in order to serve. So as I try to close, you know, I'm Catholic. The Baptists know how to start low, go slow, rise high, strike fire, and then sit them little selves down. I'm Catholic. But I want to close by saying that we're on the verge of an awakening, Dr. Weber. It's coming. It's coming because of people like you. It's coming because of people who are serving in our legislature, who are serving in our courthouse, in our state house. It's coming because of those of you who have not given up. It's coming, Alice, because the NAACP is still around. It's coming, Christine, because the DNC is coming out of the wilderness. Bob, it's been a long time coming, but change is going to come. That awakening, ladies and gentlemen, is going to take all of you by storm. So get ready for it. It's coming. Some of you can't see when the dust starts stirring up in the desert of Africa. That means that there's a storm on the horizon. Some of you don't see when those little particles of sand begin to stir and stir and stir, and by the time they get into the ocean, they begin to create moisture. Those little particles today, they're waking up our young people. They're waking up those who we thought were dead. They are stirring them up. Some of them have already said that I'm going to register to vote for the first time. I'm 31, but I now know why I must vote. Some of them are deciding that this awakening is causing them to go and look for a better job. Some of them are deciding to run for office. Some of them are just deciding that they want to serve. They want to deal with the criminal justice system. They want to start a new business. They want to refresh their own lives. That awakening, that stirring, it's happening. And it's going to come with such a force, the gale forces of tomorrow. It is the truth that we've been waiting for. We saw it. It's been happening. It's been going on for the last decade, but we somehow or another lost faith and said, oh my God, it ain't going to happen. And you know what? Just when you close your eyes, it started to brew. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to wipe away all of our tears. Ladies and gentlemen, this awakening is something that we must believe in. It is our hope. We must choose hope. We must choose action. We must use this moment that we celebrate Dr. King's birthday, to remind ourselves that that awakening is coming. And if you don't feel it in your bones, and if it's not stirring in your soul, then open your eyes, because it's happening all around you. It's coming. And where will you be when it sweeps you up? When you awake one morning, you see a bright ray of sunshine. When we walked into this building this morning, there was clouds, and you see it, it's coming. It always comes. It comes because we have faith that we have not forgotten our call and our call to serve. Dr. King brought us to that mountaintop, and he said, I may not get there with you, but we as a people, we will get to the promised land. It is before us. We see it. We can seize it. We must be the leaders who bring everyone over that mountain. Dr. King found the way to endure. He found the way to survive. He never got a chance to see the harvest. Oh yes, in Galatians 6:9, it says, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. He didn't see that harvest, but many of us, we've seen it. 2 years after I left California with over 100,000 signatures, we had a King holiday. Because you had the audacity in 1970 to make it a national holiday. It took us until 1983, but you had the audacity. That's the awakening. It happens. You have to believe it. You must find a way to endure this moment. So let us renew our faith, not just in each other, but let us renew our faith in where Dr. King was taking us. Let us not forget that he went to the mountaintop and he saw over it. He saw into the promised land, a land where we no longer had to cry, a land where we could indeed rid ourselves of injustice, a land where our brothers and our sisters could find decent and affordable housing, find jobs. It was a land where all of us had a place at the table. That's where Dr. King was taking us. And that is where we must now return to. Let's go back to that mountain. Let's see over it. Let's bring more to the table than we've ever had before. Let us walk hand in hand. Let us never grow weary in doing good. And let us remember the faith of our fathers and mothers and our ancestors and how they got over and how they came through so many storms. I want to say on a personal note that this is my first public outing of 2018. I know it's going to be a long year. It is going to be a tough year in many ways. That might be Oprah calling. Take the call. Some of y'all might not have seen Oprah in the mud directing the helicopters to her neighbors and say, look over there. Don't discount her. She came from nothing. She made something out of what God gave her. She used every talent in her body because she knew she was somebody. And so if Oprah is calling, take the call. Listen to her. Challenge her and just ask her, what is she going to do for others? And if she gives you a song, then give her a melody. Let her ride until she gets tired. And that's my word for Oprah. Now let me go back to my closing. My first public outing of 2018. I'm going to remember this day. I'm going to remember that you invited me to be your speaker. I'm very humbled by that. I'm going to remember the dinner last night, the fellowship, the friendship, sharing a meal with people you admire and respect, men and women of valor and courage. I'm going to remember that. Most of all, I'm going to remember that this was a happy day, a day when we heard the music. Oh, happy day. He taught me how to watch, how to fight and pray. Oh, happy day. Rejoicing and being happy that we all have been honored to know the words, the sermons, the deeds, and yes, we're blessed and honored to carry on the legacy of a great man, a visionary, a prophet. Like many of you in this room, a little poor black girl who grew up in the segregated South never would have reached the doors of the White House, never would have been able to teach at Harvard twice, to manage campaigns, manage the Democratic Party twice, never have been able to do so much because I came from so little, had it not been for the faith of Dr. King, knowing that little black boys and little black girls one day could rise up. That is that legacy that we must protect. That is the legacy that we must all uphold and believe in. And tomorrow, let that be your legacy. So happy birthday, Dr. King. Happy birthday, Dr. King. Happy birthday, Dr. King. God bless you. God bless the state of California. God bless the California Legislative Black Caucus. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Thank you.